Hi there, and welcome everybody to tonight's Friday edition of the This Is Ibrox Bulletin. It's going to be an interesting one tonight. I know we've already had quite a lengthy chat before it. Today I'm joined on the podcast by Dylan. How are you doing today, Dylan?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks, mate. Glad to see you guys. I just wish it was under better circumstances, but here we are.
Yeah, and we've got all things football expert Patrick Caskey. How are you doing, Patrick, today?
Yeah, I'm fine. It's a Friday, so I'm looking forward to the weekend. But as I said earlier, I don't think I'm looking forward to watching Rangers this weekend, which is a shame. So hopefully, they play on a Sunday, so they can't ruin my Sunday by performing poorly on a Saturday. So, at least the fixtures has helped us with that. They can maybe ruin my Sunday evening, but hopefully not. We do well Motherwell away, at least last year.
Yeah, that's very true. I said, as somebody that works on Wisha, the words fashions the colour have never come out of my mouth so much today. But anyway, there we go. Listen, we've got a lot to talk about. Obviously, we're going to be talking about the fallout from what's quite frankly an unacceptable result against Liverpool midweek. Going to be talking about the Goldson injury and the potential issue we might have at centre half. The TAV statement that was released last night about 10:30. And then we'll have a wee look ahead into the Motherwell game, which kicks off at Fir Park at 12 o'clock, as Patrick said, on a Sunday. But everybody knows I like to do a wee on this day, regardless of what bulletin I'm covering. And this one, want to give a wee shout out to Kevin Thompson, who, of course, gave us that excellent interview a couple of months ago with Scott Patterson. I urge you to all check that out if you can. Listen, it's his birthday today, so happy birthday, Kevin Thompson. He joined from Hibs for £2 million in 2007, which looks a bit of a steal nowadays. He had a very good Rangers career, 109 appearances, 2 league titles, a Scottish Cup, 2 Scottish League Cup titles, a UEFA Cup final in 2008, 3 goals, including that one against Celtic, and 2 fantastic challenges against Robbie Keane. So Dylan, I know we were talking about it before. What's your thoughts on Kevin Thompson as a player in his career at Rangers?
Yeah, he's a brilliant player. He was a fantastic servant for us. He said, played the European final for us, was part of a successful side in Walter Smith's second tenure as manager. I think injuries sort of held him back a bit, because I think he would be spoken much more today if it was for injuries, but there's not much I can add that nobody else has said already. I think he was a fantastic player for us, and happy birthday, Kev.
Yeah. Quick one here. Are we missing a player like that, Dylan, in the current squad at the moment? And I'm not necessarily talking about the numbers that he gives, but I'm just talking about somebody with his tenacity and his bite and his very, very high expectations of Glasgow Rangers Football Club.
A little bit, yeah. I think for a player that comes to mind that kind of comes close to that would probably be someone like a Ryan Jack, just somebody that does get to the nitty-gritty of Scottish football. But yeah, obviously Kevin Thompson was, as a player, was much more than that. He always had the technical skills. But yeah, I think he was slot in very easily, I think, to this side, and yeah, could definitely do with someone like him.
Yeah, that's it. Look, Patrick, I'll come to you. We've got to talk about Wednesday, I suppose. It was a shocking result. It was a disgraceful result. I think obviously the guys that did the post-match reaction for This Is Ibrox, fair play to them. We've had a few already this season that have been quite difficult to do. I think I might have seen you swear for the first time ever on Twitter, Patrick, this week. But what was your overall thoughts, feelings, emotions of that game, and what went wrong?
If I could identify purely what went wrong, I'd love Gio to listen, but I can't. But no, the first 20 minutes, 30 minutes were fantastic. First half was good overall. It seemed like we were in for another, at least at that point, good European night. Add to the highlights of Braga, Leipzig, and the lot last year. It looked like we perhaps found our mojo. Beat Hearts 4-0 on the weekend, pass in the same merit as well. Albeit not fantastic performances, but really good results, and perhaps we hit the upwards curve finally. But yeah, and then I think a lot of people are trying to identify like this single personnel change, which then led us to collapse. I don't think it's a personnel change per se. Obviously, we play way better with Goldson, who's been in really good form these past weeks and has looked impressive with Davies, especially. Natural left-right footer, both ball players, allows us symmetry in defence and in possession. And then Jack went off as well. I think obviously you want to have your best players playing. I think Goldson probably is the best example of that. And you could perhaps point to some extent. When he goes off, we collapse a bit. But I also think it's like just an inability to apply ourselves. I think the second goal, fine, but the third goal is terrible. McGregor just kicks it for touch, and they win it immediately. And it's almost like all of that hard work, we're still in the game, has just exacerbated, and the game's out after that poor kick from McGregor. And I think he's at fault, maybe not at fault for a lot of the goals, but does really poorly. I don't remember if it was the fourth or the fifth. I'm disappointed I'm saying fourth or fifth when he's just chilling on the left side of the goal and Salah puts it into the bottom right corner and he's just doing nothing, and he jumps kind of like an 8-year-old jumping into the pool kind of thing, but with half the enthusiasm. So I thought he was poor, and it's just really disappointing because he was really great the week past at Liverpool. With some great saves, sort of looked like the McGregor we'd seen in Europe last season, not domestically though, and the McGregor we'd seen during 55. But I think this is just another example that like he isn't the sort of solution. But then how mad can we be at a 40-year-old not being our solution? I think it's a failure to prepare as opposed to a failure on McGregor's part because he's 40. I think it's really difficult to get that angry at him. I think we can get more sort of frustrated at the reason that he's still playing, both look at the manager and the recruitment team.
Yeah. So all very valid points there. And I think a lot of people will agree with largely what you said there. But the one thing, something that isn't tangible, it's really hard to measure, and it's the overriding feeling that I think a lot of supporters came away from that. And I'd be keen to get your thoughts on this, Patrick, as well. Is, do you feel that we just chucked it? Do you feel that players down tools or didn't have the belief in themselves, or was there? So I know I'm not trying to make you give us an answer. As you said, a singularity. But what did you feel that way, that they just weren't putting the effort in?
Well, I mean, if you don't think they down tools, I think then the performance is inexplicable because they don't turn into absolute amateurs for that last 40 minutes, generally the second half, but really that last 40, 35 minutes. If they didn't throw in the towel per se or take the foot off the gas, then what did they do? Because they didn't just magically turn into terrible footballers. The only explanation is a lack of application and a lack of intensity, which I guess like you work so hard, have such a good first half, and then it's sort of given away in schoolboy sort of immature footballing errors. But then like you're representing a badge, you're representing a fans, there's 50,000 in there. They've paid an incredible price to be there, 180 on the package. And I don't get how you can down tools. This is that classic coming from a fan, and my dream is to play for Rangers. So obviously I'd put in 100%, and you'd expect these are professionals and they will do so. But I do think you can certainly question the fibre of a few of the players coming out, not in a holistic way to say that they don't put the effort in, but I think a lot of them can be questioned if they really put their effort in for those 30 minutes. Not to say they don't put in their effort for their entire time at Rangers or for the last few weeks, but that 30 minutes, because if they didn't put their effort in, then their ability just sort of dissipated, and there's no explanation for that.
Yeah, and Dylan, I'll come to you next on that. I mean, obviously we all watched it's terrible. Halloween's a good few weeks away yet, but that was an absolute horror show. But what were your thoughts overall on the game, and do you largely agree with what I think a lot of us have been saying in terms of that Rangers did appear to really disappointingly and quite inexplicably down tools?
I think there's just sort of one word that comes to mind with that performance, and it's embarrassing. Now, I will preface this by saying that Liverpool are a great team. They've got world-class players, and a lot of the players in that team have a lot to prove. I don't think it's any coincidence that Mo Salah was on the bench, and as soon as he came on, he scored a hat-trick because he has a point to prove to Klopp. However, in saying that, it was just a total capitulation. We did sort of held our own for like the first half, I thought. So we actually played pretty well, considering the European performances this year. Got the first goal, really nicely taken, and I think it's just like the errors, and you can't really be this sloppy at this level, especially when you're coming up against, world-class players such as a Salah, such as a Nunez, players of that ilk, and Firmino as well. I think sort of summed up by like the first goal we conceded, when it was a set piece, and Firmino just sort of gets in between Tavernier and Sakala, and Firmino's not exactly the tallest player on the pitch, but yeah, he's still able to get like that header to sort of out muscles Tavernier, and beats McGregor near post. I mean, I don't want to sit here and say that the players chucked it, because I don't think professional footballers struck it when they go and get stuff. But for me, I just saw it was just sort of a belief thing that they just mentally just think we can't do anything here. And it just, not that they won't, but they just couldn't. And I think you can see by like the later goals that we conceded that it was just individual mistakes, misplaced kicks from the goalkeeper, defenders not doing their job correctly, stuff like that. So yeah, again, I know I'm going a bit ranty here, but I think that just sort of sums up our European performance, because I think with us in Europe, we have got much more expectations of ourselves, because they're not even just last season, but like under Gerrard, where we're able to sort of hold ourselves against, sometimes Champions League level opponents. So it's just been another disappointment to see this team struggle so much against the likes of Liverpool, Napoli, and Ajax this year. And I'm not expecting them to win per se, but I just sort of expect a bit of fight, a bit of competitiveness. And so far, we just haven't seen that at all.
Yeah, I agree. I can't remember where I saw it, but I read that there was, I think we maybe had one yellow card or no yellow cards. Like, not even somebody just. I know it's not the finest thing, but just seeing a big chopper, a big halfer of a challenge, just a bit of effort to stop. But anyway, so like I think that's we can assume that you largely agree with basically what Tav said, Dylan, there, in terms of I'll just read out a bit of what he said. I think he found it quite interesting. Was, I'd never once look at any teammate in my team and say they would chuck in the towel. Liverpool made 3 substitutes with Jota, Salah and Thiago, who are world-class players, and they caught us trying to play football in the wrong areas. Firstly, I'll stick with you on this, Dylan, but like, number one, what did you make of A, the statement at all, and what did you make of B, the timing of it when it came out? And as I said, I think you largely agree with what's been said in Tav's statement.
Yeah, so I think I was a bit perplexed at the timing of the statement. Obviously, Rangers Twitter's been kind of on fire since Wednesday night to sort of like negativity. So I sort of get maybe why they released a statement at the time, but also it just felt like they're just trying to sort of take the least amount of heat possible. Yeah, sort of reading the statement earlier on, I think there really isn't too much I can disagree with Stav on. Obviously, he'll be as disappointed as any other players to lose by that margin, but it doesn't make it feel any better. I think when Goldson went off on Wednesday night and when Jack went off, those are like 2 sort of leaders on the park per se, but you sort of look at players such as a Dav, a Barisic, a Kent, a Davies, a Lundstrom, and Ian McGregor. These are like professionals. They've been at the club for a long time now. They know what it takes, and yeah, I mean, to be honest, whilst I agree with Dav's statement, I just think it doesn't make me feel any better, if I'm to be honest.
Yeah, I agree. I think I saw a tweet in response to it. It might have even been this as Ibrox, but it was that still game one line where it's birthday care push, and I think Tav faced a bit of criticism for not being there. I feel that the captain should be there in defeats like this. Fronting the media, it's part of your responsibilities as a partner of the squad. I understand that he wasn't there because there was a drug test, and that is the only kind of meaningful thing that I take from that.
That's probably like the only positive thing I can take, is that there is like at least a reasonable excuse that he wasn't there straight after the game from to the media. But again, that's the only thing.
Yeah, and look, Patrick, the sort of next aspect of the fallout from the Liverpool game, so to speak, is was the Goldson injury you referred to earlier on. I think that did. Our capitulation against Liverpool was certainly multifactorial. That was one of them, but that's worried me in the long term. Goldson going down injured. Obviously, we've not had the press conference. That'll come tomorrow, but I don't see him being in the team for at least a few weeks going forward, given that Rangers have got an almighty injury record at centre half, with Suter being out, Hollander being out, Ben Davies rumoured to be not 100% fit for Sunday as well. How are Rangers going to deal with this injury crisis, and what are potentially some options that we've got?
Yeah, I mean, I think Suter's confirmed to be out to the World Cup, as is Hollander, and I would probably, obviously we'll wait and see. I'm no medical expert. We'll wait and see upon clarification tomorrow if we do get any, because the club has been terrible at communicating the injury timelines and stuff like that. But I think the demand to know how Goldson is will sort of supersede any PR sort of strategy to hide it. But I think he'll be out to the World Cup. That's just a gut feeling. So we'll be left with a mix of King, Sands, Lundstrom, and Davies, because I think if anything, it's probably just a minor sort of complication, because he has been embedding and he's been usually taken off at the 65th minute, but he played the full 90 last night. He's had a history of hamstring problems dating back for the past 2 years, but they were quite long-term problems, and this one didn't seem anything. But obviously, we know from Hadji's example that just because you can walk it off and it doesn't hurt at the time doesn't mean it's not dangerous. But I think best case scenario we'll have Davies as well, and I think that's fine if we're looking in games at home or dominate possession. I really don't think it should be much of a problem domestically. Davies plus Sands, it will be fine. I think Sands is a decent sort of substitute at centre back. He showed quite extensively in a few games earlier that he can be trusted there. Some people take problem with his proclivity to sort of foul quite a bit, which is fair. He got a red card, probably should have got sent off. I think it was against Ross County, but I think he primarily will be playing the ball as much as we do as centre backs in the Scottish League. And Davies, he will be the sort of the calm head, the Goldson per se for the last few years, because Goldson's been chopping and changing with a series of options besides him. We might see Lundstrom back there as well, just because although he's not as natural a centre back and probably not as good of one, he's more assured and he's more confident, and that might give him a jolt to sort of get back into form, because he's been struggling to say the least recently, which is never good to see. So maybe sort of either rejigging his position, rejigging his role might lead to something, but I doubt it. So I would keep him in the midfield and maybe play him off the bench or something, just give him some sort of catalyst to improve his form. That's a lot easier said than done. But yeah, it's not ideal. Hollander and Suter have been long-term, so we've been game planning for that for a while, for the last 2 or 3 weeks, I think, since it was announced for Suter. And the Goldson injury kind of models or reflects how Celtic have McGregor out, albeit they're probably better covered there than we are. But those are perhaps two of the MVPs of each team, the most valuable players, and both of them seem to be out for an extensive period. So we'll see who's able to survive without the linchpin in their team for longer. Yeah. And I think if we see Sands and let's say Davies, if they play well, we won't see much of a difference. But it's the fact that, at least on Sands' behalf, he has been somewhat inconsistent. But I do back him, and he's only got another till the rest of the season for us to be convinced that we should spend the $5 million on him. So I guess this is a good time for him to sort of stake a claim, and King as well. But I think some people would like to see him sort of removed from the first team like 11 and rotation just for a week or two, just because he wasn't great against Liverpool, but I didn't expect him to do so. He's still in the deep end, and allow him to give him some time to sort of be nurtured and coddled, because he's 18 after all. So he needs to be sort of nurtured and make sure his morale stays up, because it could be something which on the long run knocks his confidence and his ability to progress.
Oh, that was unexpected. I was expecting quite a doom and gloom answer there, but the voice of reason has spoken, and I now suddenly feel a bit better about the potential centre-half partnership problems that we might have against the Motherwell.
I mean, it all changes tomorrow if they say Davies is out, and then we're not in a great situation. I think it's a permutation is basis on him. But even still, like if you have King, Sands, Lundstrom, Sands, like, unless you're playing Aberdeen, Hibs, Hearts, or Celtic, I really don't think you'll see much of a difference, to be fair. But yeah, obviously it's not as good to have the tried and tested, communicative, best, well-rounded partnership that has a Goldson and has a Davies.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. I think that's an excellent point. As I said, you've certainly reassured me. Look, Dylan, the next point we'll come on to is we did a wee cheeky poll on Twitter today, just to get a sort of general feeling. We had about 1,000 responses for it, and basically the poll was asking, and people obviously who follow our account, if you haven't done that, go and follow that on Twitter already, what their thoughts and feelings are on the manager. We've had 3 options. We had Gio out. That at my latest looking, got 46%. We had Geo State at 24%, and we had 30% undecided. Where do you stand in this, Dylan? I know it's a difficult question to answer. You know, the sort of two flip sides or the sort of main arguments in each camp is that I've seen is, number one, this has happened too many times, a result like this. You look at the Celtic games, you look at the Ajax game, and obviously the Liverpool game, the Rangers have just appeared to just totally capitulate, totally just sort of give up. And then you've got the other side of it, which says it's you've got to look at the quality opposition. You know, Tav alludes that in his statement about them being world class. And then again, something we've talked about quite extensively, the incredible injury record to the first team. I mean, we've not even talked about players like Hadji and Roof still out as well. So what side of the fence do you sit on, Dylan?
Yeah, so it's quite a lot to unpack from that question, to be honest. So I think obviously for me, I'm sort of like flip from each side, right? So reason for me to keep him is, you know, you sort of look at last season, he got us a European final, and arguably he could have won that European final as well. And he won as the Scottish Cup for the first time in 13 years. So I think he has enough credit in that bank to perhaps see the end of this season. But here's what I'm kind of falling on. So logically, you can look at arguments for keeping Gio, and they're totally valid, especially when considering in regards to European performances, you can say, well, there's a used golfing class. We're up against a next level of opposition that we haven't played for quite some time. And those are all valid. But for me, I just have like a gut feeling that he might not be the guy for us long term. And I think you sort to use an example, when Steven Gerrard was going through his rough patch in his second season when he got knocked at the gut by Hearts, we were sort of whimpering in the league. A lot of people did want him out at that point. But for me, I was like, no, I've just got a feeling that he is a man for the job. And I wasn't basing that on any facts or statistics or anything like that. It was just like a gut feeling that you get with some managers that he will turn it around. With Gio, it's so hard because we can see that he is a good manager, a good coach. He can make good decisions during a game, but for one, the European performances this year have been unacceptable. I get that there is a next level opposition, but once you go into that thinking of how are we meant to compete with the likes of Liverpool, with the likes of Ajax when he spends so much money, you're sort of like, I don't want to say like a loser's mentality, but you sort of create that mentality of we can't compete against these clubs. So he just gives them some slack in that regard. And I think that's quite a dangerous slope to go down, especially with regard to Europe. In terms of domestically, yeah, we've been fine. You know, we've only really lost to Celtic under Gio, but obviously it's a manner of those losses as well. The 3-0 last season, the 4-0 this season. Not to mention the fact that we did have a good lead over Celtic. You know, before the Christmas break, and then after we sort of capitulated as well. So it's a hard one. So to answer your question, I'm not even too sure myself, in all honesty. But it's just like this gut feeling. I just don't think he's the right man for the job. But that's not to say that he should take the blame for everything, because he's only part of the problem. The players, I think, should take much more responsibility because a lot of them have been here for a while and a lot of them aren't performing. So I'm not going to like single any players out, but there are certain players in that team that are on a good wage that have been higher rated in the past and they've just not turned up this season. And then you have to look at like the footballing operations and like how we've spent that money in the transfer market. We've had possessions such as the midfield and the right wing, and even like the goalkeeper to an extent that needed sorting out. But the fact that we spent 4 or 5 million on Redmond Yilmaz, who's for whatever reason not being in the team right now, and Mendondo, who seems to be more on the bench these days than he is on the field. So you have to like question Ross Welsh in the scouting department as to why we're sort of I don't want to say misspending, but seem to be why we're not addressing the issues that we have. So I do appreciate that. That was another wee mini rant from me, but that's kind of like my feeling on the matter.
Yeah. So again, hypothetical. You're on the board and you're asked, what do you keep him or do you sack him?
I think for me, it's quite a hard one. Maybe wait till the World Cup.
Yeah.
Because I think if we slip even further behind Celtic, and we do have even more embarrassing performances in Europe, then I think it probably wouldn't be an easy decision for the board to make at that point. That's what I'm going to say.
Yeah, I think Dylan's raised some fair points there, Patrick. I think I feel similarly in terms of that. I'm in that undecided. I've moved from we definitely need to keep him to maybe the undecided camp. I know there's a lot to unpack, and it's not a simple question, but nothing with Rangers ever is simple, I suppose. But where do you sit in this debate?
I don't know. I think you have to consider the reaction to any action. I think sacking him now, I think there's merit to sack him, but we're not going to get a manager realistically until probably the Qatar break. That seems the best juncture to get someone new. And is David McCallum a better manager than Giovanni Van Bronckhorst at current with the exodus of coaching staff? Probably not. So I think in an ideal world, if we had a replacement lined up immediately, yes, I would pull the trigger. I think obviously the European run last year was fantastic, but that has no reflection on our performances domestically. And as much as I love European nights, and everyone does, and those should be a figment and a central sort of tenet of Rangers and their identity, it's winning the league, which is the most important. And he's been here for almost a year, and there hasn't been a single day where we've looked like the best team in Scotland. I don't think there's been a single 2-week period that we've looked better than Celtic, and I think they've played well and they've come on leaps and bounds under Ange, but it hasn't even looked that there was an identity or time in which we were going to not even just beat them, but look like a team who's going to win the league, and that's backed up by sort of rolling averages of performance metrics and stuff like that. I think he's obviously been handed not the greatest card, but he hasn't maximized it per se. I know he'll see what's going on in training, but he hasn't sort of put the players that work for his style best. I think his reluctance to play Yilmaz. Obviously, people will say he doesn't speak language and is young, but I think we're fundamentally a team who requires progressive passing from the wing backs, and we don't cross much. And he's playing Borna Barisic, who is a decent crosser. He's a very good crosser, but I think you saw the commentator, Steve McManaman, was just astonished about how regressive and backwards passing he was. I think that's probably the first time he's ever watched him, and I think that's exactly what's characterised his build-up play contribution. And I think Scott Arfield is good in the penalty box, but our left centre mid needs to be able to contribute to build-up play, progress the ball, break the lines, and it's nice if you can get that goal in the penalty box, but our system is predicated on a functioning left wing, which we haven't seen. And because of that, you see Matondo and Ken, and really anyone who plays on our left wing do poorly. These are not bad footballers. The common denominator is not that they're all bad, it's rather that they're playing in the same position and they're set up effectively to fail. And I think it's a bit, not much about the system, but it's about the personnel who are playing there. But yeah, I mean, I'm not exactly bullish on the idea of keeping him, but I would probably give it until Qatar on the basis that that's when we're going to be able to get someone better. And I think he's probably better than David McCallum. The Hibs game last year doesn't give me much faith in him. But also you have the interesting question where it's do you wait until Gio and Rangers are out of the title race to sack him? And is that too long? Because I think a lot of people, whether it be emotionally or based on some statistics or analysis, think that we will at some point, maybe not soon, but before sort of the crunch time will fall out of a title race. And do you wait until that happens, or do you proactively take a step and be like, the results are fine, they're not great, but the performances are poor, and do we sort of revert that and try something new or not? I don't really have much faith in the current board to do so, but I do think Gio himself has to take and absorb some blame, just because the way he set up the team has been quite poor, and his reluctance to play some players. I know a lot of people thought John McLaughlin was playing poorly, and I agree. He wasn't great. But the difference between McLaughlin and McGregor is not a better goalkeeper. It's an entirely different type of goalkeeper. With McGregor, he can't play his own style. So he's already sort of failed to the pressure and taken it in and changed. And that fundamentally changes the way he wants to play football, because these are not two same types of keepers. So he's sort of listened to what the fans say, which I don't think is probably the best thing to do as a manager. And he's fallen to all that pressure, and then he's changed diametrically how his team plays, which I don't think is a good marker for a manager, much less it shows that we really don't have an identity per se, or he's unwilling to sort of stay with the identity and ride the waves. And I think that's probably one of the biggest criticisms we've seen over the last few months, was that you'll see on Twitter after every loss, they're like, Gio's been here for a year. Do we know how we play? And I think that's fair. I think the only way I can describe the way we've been playing recently is bland. And when we play well, it's intense. But those aren't sort of characteristic of style. Those are just emotional and sort of inputs in like how hard we work, as opposed to we play this lovely brand of attacking football.
Yeah, no, listen, again, you raise a fantastic few points here. I can actually hear Ross Chalmers clapping you about your McLaughlin McGregor comparison somewhere. But look, for me, the difference between now and previous results is that there's a clear line being drawn in the sand. I think what every supporter that's not saying Gio has to go now is that it has to be better by Qatar. I heard an argument today that it's fantastic. Part of Gio's remit was to get us into the Champions League, and he's done that. But at what cost, and how detrimental has that been to our domestic performances, domestic season so far? And when you look at it, my response back to that was, we are 2 points behind in the league at the start of October. It's, in the grand scheme of things, there's still a long way to go. But look, I think I agree with you, both of you, on that. I'm not quite ready to say a definite off, but I think that line's been drawn that it has to improve certainly before the World Cup in Qatar. Look, there's only one last point to mention, and it's just a point to say, because I think Rangers get enough negative press at time. I think this was a good decision. There was obviously that tube, that's the only word I could describe him as, that was the head of partnership management at Rangers. He's left the club after what was quite an ill-judged message on social media, sitting in the away section at the game on Wednesday night, and correct decision from the club for once. But look, we'll move on to the game on Wednesday. I'll come to you first on this, Dylan. What are you looking for at 12 o'clock on Sunday at Fir Park, and how do Rangers pick themselves up from such a defeat like that?
Yeah, I mean, the only way they can do it is just keep moving forward, as sort of James Tavernier alluded to in the statement. I think obviously a win is a must. If not, then I'll be logging at Rangers Twitter for a few days until it calms down. But not only a win, but a performance, sort of like to sort of convince the fans that this team can be the best in the country. And yeah, listen, the last couple of games, 4-0 convincing performances, I feel, especially up in Tynecastle. I thought that was a good win. There's always a good win there, but to do it 4-0, pretty good. I don't think there'll be much complaints in that regard, but I think we need to see a more attacking style. I think we need to see some of the signings. I think, for example, I'd like to see Madondo on the left-hand side. This goes for the fact that I have a feeling that Kent's going to leave at the end of the summer. Right, I'll hold my hands up. I think he'll, not in the summer, I think he'll leave at the end of the season. So we've got Madondo, who's on a longer-term contract. So we may as well see like what he can offer us in that meantime. And I don't want us to keep using Kent for the rest of the season, and then when we start using Madondo next season, we realise maybe he's not good enough. So we've wasted like the period between now and then on one player that we suspect is leaving anyway. So, and I would like to see Redmond Yilmaz, but again, because of Gordon Gold's entry and a potential entry by Davies, I think Gio might keep more at this in terms of experience, especially when you have sort of like potentially an 18-year-old and a player like Sands, who isn't naturally a centre back. So I think that's what will happen. But and I would like to still see Sakal on the right as well, personally, because I think he does offer something. I think he has put in the effort. He has sort of produced some moments, especially last week when he got a goal and assist. So I know it's a long-winded answer, but I think a win a must, but a performance is definitely a must, because I think they need to prove us wrong and prove to us that they are capable of winning the league.
Yeah, that's it exactly. And Patrick, what's your sort of predicted lineup for the game v Motherwell? And again, working near Motherwell, I hear a lot about them, and you know their fans are equally as critical as their football club at times is what we are. But they seem to have really turned the corner since they let Alexander go. Hamill's come in, and they've had some good results. I think they absolutely thrashed Ross County away. 5-0 away from home, which is never underestimated. And they had a couple, didn't win, but the game certainly away at Parkhead. Motherwell looked comfortable for large parts of that game too. Identifying the two main sort of threats, I think Louis Moulton and Van Veen up front, it's just given me the fear, given that we've got a potential. I said if Davies is injured, that doesn't bode well. But how do you think we'll start v Motherwell on Sunday?
Yeah, I think Dylan makes a good point about the perhaps lack of movement at left back, just because we won't see Goldson, we might not see Davies, but I don't know if I can take another game with Borna playing. So I would love to see Ritvan play. I thought he was really positive in his 15-minute cameo. I'd love to see some movement at goalkeeper because both McCrory and McLaughlin are a lot more conducive to our style we want to play, in parentheses. And McGregor's come off a really, really poor game. Like as much credit as he earned Liverpool away, I think he lost all of it, if not more, on Wednesday. I'd like to see Tillman play centrally, just because it's not because he's been playing well, it's just everyone else has been bad. So you might as well throw something different. We haven't seen him on the left side, and I think he might play a bit better there, sort of left centre mid, not left wing. I think the less we see Tillman on the wing is much good. We shouldn't see him on the wing anymore, unless we literally have 11 players and no one can play right wing. But I think if you see him centrally, you'll get some industry and some, I think more importantly, technique, ball carrying, progression. Him and Yilmaz would work well, I think, together, and that would also open up whoever plays on the left wing. I saw Roof's Instagram story, which I thought was a nice touch, and it looks like he might be close. I think Motherwell might be too soon, but as soon as he's back, I'd probably play him on the right wing. Just because he was quite effective in that position under Gerrard, and we played far more narrow, so you have to consider what our right wing is asked to do. So he's probably not conducive to the classic touchline sort of style winger that Gio has. But if he can be pragmatic and realize that no one is working well in that, albeit Sakala for parts, but I would play Sakala at right wing against Motherwell. Obviously, he's great against Motherwell. I think he's better as a left wing, and I think neither Kent nor Matondo are doing great. But as I mentioned, no one's going to do well at left wing with the current setup. Cholak, obviously, he's scoring. Morello he's doing well when he comes on, but I don't think you can complain about Cholak playing. Lundstrom maybe. I love Stephen Davis, but he's just looked really uninspired the last few days, and I think perhaps I guess he's cool on the ball, but it comes off quite lethargic when we have so much possession. So against Motherwell, I think he could play some nice passes. He has that really nice ability to find Tav on the right wing. The PSV goal, I think we had a goal against St. Mirren like that, but I don't think this is a game for him. I think Alex Lowry's not close enough, but maybe give Charlie McCann a game. I think it's the fact that the more players play, the less I want to see them, which really isn't a good situation to be in. But we have had 2 back-to-back 4-0s domestically, and I think if we go off the basis of what we were able to do away from home, Motherwell last year, we had a 3-1 and 6-1. I think hopefully we'll see like a 4-0, 4-1. I would expect us to concede just because we did so last year. We do so often against Motherwell. They got the 2-2 as well last season, and then 1-1 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. But I expect us to win. But I don't demand a win. I just want something that's fun to watch and progressive and penetrative. And I guess the antithesis of everything we've seen the last few weeks in Europe, and I guess against Dundee United as well and Celtic. So hopefully we can sort of align the performances we're getting in domestic, which are good, with some good performances, because I think that a good performance will sort of calm the room so much.
Yeah, it's a bit like Groundhog Day, isn't it? After every European performance or game, we're just saying the same thing. We're just looking for a good result and a good performance at the weekend. But yeah, again, got to largely agree with everything that you've said there. I think the goalkeeper will be a real interesting one, because McGregor was put back in the side for his saves, but he certainly didn't cover himself in glory. And the other point I'd like to pick you up on there is I hope we see Charlie McCann playing as well. And he's been doing everything he can. He's been fantastic for the B squad at times, and I think that I can't remember what game it was at Ibrox, but he was absolutely brilliant when he played. Look, seeing as Patrick's already given us a score prediction of 4-0, did you say there, Patrick?
I'll say 4-1.
That's fair enough. And Dylan, what's your score prediction?
Well, I want it to be, a 4-0, but I suspect it's going to be a 3-1.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. Just because I like things being the same, I'll go for another 4-0, and we'll get our third 4-0 victory on the trot. But look, listen, thanks for joining us, guys. That's been it was a difficult podcast at this was. I think about 25 minutes, 30 minutes of it were quite difficult, but we've got through it. Let's hope Rangers pick themselves up off the ground from again what was a shocking result on Wednesday and put a performance in on Sunday, and we can go get another 3 points towards the league. But listen, thanks for joining us, Dylan. Thanks for joining us, Patrick. Just as normal, there'll be the Sunday Review podcast that'll come out at 8 o'clock, and then we'll have all our normal bulletins at 7 p.m. on the Monday, Wednesday, and Friday next week as well. But just want to say thanks to everybody for joining, and I hope Rangers play well at the weekend. Thanks.